off of the beach, and we got 52 pounds of trash in total on the beach.
Yeah.
And we found a big crab pot, so that probably most took up mostly other plastics like styrofoam and plastic straws, and we found a lot of nurdles. And if you don't know what nurdles are, they're compact trash, so they've been deformed into tiny little plastic balls. So if like you've had a water bottle and you throw it in the trash, like here we have nurdles right here. They grow smaller and they grow into little nurdles. And thank you for letting me speak.
I have a nurdle necklace on, actually, with all the kids made them at the beginning of the year, so if you really want to know what a nurdle is, you can come see me.
Well, hi, I'm Jeff Winchester, so right here, I guess I'm going to right here we have,
Hey, here, that's what counts.
Bad band up here. Basically, this is basically when we were going to all the city council meetings at that time, and so at this point, we were learning about how some people agreed on keeping the plastic bag and some people didn't really, and we even wrote essays on plastic pollution. So another thing we did, well, we went to most, well, all the ones that were about the Black Bad Band, of all the city council meetings, and we responded to the. So I'm going to transfer to Isaac here.
We wrote the essays and we went to those city council meetings. Yes,
I think what you mean to say is you responded to some editorials and wrote letters.
Yeah, we responded to some editorials, and we wrote these essays, and it persuaded some people. And then we wrote about learning about the GPGP, and the GPGP stands for Great Pacific Garbage Patch, which is a giant blob or spread out of a bunch of marine debris like plastic bags and water bottles, and experts say that by 2050 there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. That's just
Sad.
And then over here, I guess I'll do it. Hey, that sounds okay.
Or maybe Jasmine wants to finish up.
Oh, all right.
Don't forget a partner.
Person.
That's all right.
Is there anything you would like to add, Jasmine, about our class's journey to ban plastic bags?
Speak up, sweetie.
Learning about the GPGP, which is a giant blob of plastic garbage, trash, floating in our ocean, and it's the biggest garbage patch in the ocean. And,
Where is it located?
it's located in between the Pacific Ocean, in between California and Hawaii. Twice the size of Texas. Experts also estimated that it weighs as much as 3 statues of Lady Liberty.
Question. Got a question.
We have time for maybe any questions. I was just told. Let's see if we have any questions.
I'd like to ask the kids, have you made a difference and will you make a difference?
Okay, answer it.
Yes and yes.
We have made a difference so far because we're the 7th or 8th city/country to city to ban plastic bags, and I'm pretty sure that makes most of the difference.
Yes.
How about in your own school? And I was wondering, where do you get the beeswax covers?
So me and my class, we had a family night a couple months ago, and what we did for family night was we were making actually beeswax wraps, and we were selling them. And actually, one more thing we have is we have a surfboard that we are selling tickets about for our field trip. And that's what we're doing to make money for our field trip is we're, somebody donated a surfboard to us and we're selling tickets for $10 each for a surfboard.
Oh, where the field trip?
It's to Beverly Beach.
South Beach, actually.
South Beach. And we're staying the night in the yurts.
That's wonderful. Where can we get the beeswax wraps now?
Sam Case Elementary. I wasn't sure if it was appropriate to
Yeah, it is.
things
Yep.
to sell, so I just
Absolutely.
left them. But if you would like to purchase a ticket for the a raffle for the surfboard or beeswax wraps, you can come by Sam Case Elementary. You can always find my email, Olivia Schrader, and I can arrange something with you too.
I bet Oceana would sell them for you.
Maybe we should look into that.
Yeah.
She's right here. So Oceana tabled to get the tickets.
Okay, well, I really want to thank Olivia and her students. I think the adults are going to be giving presentations. They might have trouble keeping up with the kids here, so great job.
Can we get everybody to squish together? We got chairs in the middle and we got people everywhere.
There's one teacher right here. There are chairs here and there around here. Folks are standing. I'm going to try to
Scoot together.
well, there's one or two chairs right over there.
Hi, my name's Connie.
Scoot that way and scoot this way. Fill them up.
I needed more.
Okay, so actually our next two speakers is Amy Thompson from Thompson Sanitary, and then Mark Salins from Lincoln County Solid Waste. And they're sort of, I think Amy's going to go first. They're sort of doing, Amy's, you're going to be more on the
just basic trash recycling, and then Mark's going to talk more about sustainability and a grant that we worked on.
Okay, great. Okay, this is Amy.
Grab the lights.
All right. So I usually do this
one's got to be off.
I can do it for like half an hour to an hour, so I'm going to really try to move through it so we can have some questions. You guys probably already know a lot of these things, but so I just like to start about how much waste we create. So this is MSW is municipal solid waste, and this right here is our total municipal solid waste generation, and that includes recycling. It's garbage, recycling, everything in millions of tons. And this is per capita per person. So here's starting with 1960. The latest is 2014. This is from EPA. So right now we're creating 258.5 million tons of trash in the United States a year. And that averages to about 4.5 pounds per person per day. So I just want you to have, some are less, obviously, some are more, but this is what I like to start with so that people have an idea how much they're creating. And out of that information, this is millions of tons. So this is what that is made up of. So paper is a huge portion of our solid waste. And food, yard trimmings, wood, plastics. And I was speaking to someone earlier about plastics. This is all measured by weight. It's not measured by volume. Plastics don't weigh very much, so I don't think this is a total accurate representation of how much plastic we throw away, because the landfill actually measures in volume. So it doesn't totally jive. That's all something to keep in mind. And one of the reasons we started a mixed compostables program here in Newport for our curbside is to capture this food waste, because it's creating methane. Although they do capture it at the landfill, it's still a huge amount of our waste. Over here is what we recycle. So when we do separate it out into recycling in the blue cart, this is what it's made up of. So, or just recycling in general. So again, paper is a huge portion of recycling. Yard trimmings, metals, glass, and then plastic is actually 3.5% of what we recycle. So, and again by weight. So that just gives you a glimpse of what our world looks like, and what we're looking at when we're recycling. If you live in Newport, you probably have this service, and this is my favorite thing. This is what I want people to do first, is if it goes in here, because it's 100% recyclable. So we haul this to Pacific Region Compost outside of Corvallis. It's made into compost and sold mainly for agricultural application. So this is what goes in that cart: food, soiled paper, and plants. If it grows, it goes, like meat, bones, plants, everything goes in there, and they commercially produce compost in about 60 to 70 days. Yeah.
What about invasive species? Can you put invasive species plants in that?
Yep, they cook it. They have soil scientists that work there, and it's a very scientific process. It's really actually cool, and they give tours. So if you ever want to go, they will show you what they do.
So when you're cleaning your yard and you've got invasive species, you can just go right in there and you guys will take care of it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. And so this is Pacific Region Compost Facility. So this is the end product. And with the food waste, they actually go on aerator beds. So they're concrete, and they pump air into there because it's such a wet. So yeah. So there's kind of two different piles going on at this facility, and it's pretty interesting. So this is the next thing that I like to say that I'd like you to do next is mixed recycling. We have cardboard, metal, aluminum tin, mixed paper, and plastic bottles and jugs only now. You know, we're all aware of the China recycling ban, which is not a bad thing, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But so those are things, and cardboard actually, we haul to a MRF, which is a material recovery facility in Salem. And it gets separated there, and then we haul back the cardboard to GP. So all the cardboard from that facility goes to GP to make new cardboard out of.
So is that plastic? Those are just the ones with the small holes?
Plastic is any bottles or jugs that the opening is smaller than the base.
Right.
Yeah.
Has a neck.
Or neck, all that kind of thing. I know it's a very complicated message. Yeah.
But we're getting it.
Okay. Yes.
What about, I don't think it's like an almond milk, like cardboard? It's
No.
not recycled, right?
It's not, because it's wax and they have to extrude those,
Okay.
and it's a very expensive process, and right now it's cheaper to make those new
Okay.
than it is to recycle them.
So do you need the lid on the bottles?
No,
Okay.
please, yeah, no
Remove.
lids. Because if they come off, they can get caught in the recycling process. So why can't you recycle all plastics? It has to be a certain type of plastic. There has to be the material's ability to be sorted. So when it's going through all these conveyor belts and things, if it can't be sorted well, we can't find a market to it, because you have to separate everything into what they'll buy. So recycling markets are obviously a huge piece of what the MRFs are looking for, what they can sell it for. Right now, you know, we used to, 2 years ago, we got paid to send recycling to the MRF, about $66 a ton. And now we are paying $100 a ton to get rid of it. That does not include the trucking. So it's changed dramatically for us. Yeah.
What is the market for the plastic? PVC?
It is, so it goes overseas. I have to tell you, that's pretty much where a lot of West Coast markets. If you're on the East Coast, there's a lot of recycling plants in the South. There is one recycling plant in Oregon that is taking these by the amount of volume that we're creating. And they're making beverage bottles into those. So it is in Oregon, and like when you drop off at Bottle Drop, those all go to an Oregon facility. It's in St. Helens.
How about PVC? Oh, excuse me. Amy has 7 more minutes for her presentation. So we're going to have a break at 8:30, and so you can talk with Amy at
Okay,
8:30.
so, and why note, we also are not doing shredded paper anymore, and a lot of that, it has to do with how the material is sorted, and it just drops through all the conveyor belts, and it becomes a big soggy mess. So there are shredding services that are separate from that you can talk to me about later if you're interested in that, because we do recycle them when we can keep them separate. So, so this is the Garden Material Recovery Facility. So every year I take all the 7th graders in Newport to this facility, and they get to see it. But this is unprocessed recycling. It looks like garbage a lot of times. And then the landfill. So how did we get here with China? I could talk a lot about this, but you know, if you Google China, this is what comes up, and this is why they needed to clean up their environment. They were taking our trash, essentially sorting through it and taking out the valuable things, and then burying whatever wasn't recyclable. And they don't have a formal landfill system like we do. They are implementing that now, but like our landfill here, each time they open up a new cell, which is where they, bury the trash, it's about $1 million worth of engineering so that nothing leaches out of those cells. And so here, they were not doing that. And it was going into rivers and streams and carrying it out to the ocean. They didn't even have a recycling program for their citizens, and so now they are doing that. And they create enough on their own. They're not interested in taking any of our plastics or any material. So we are not hauling anything, nothing is going to China anymore. So that's a very small nutshell. If you want to know more, I can tell you lots. But so our message is to keep it clean, because then we can market it better, and because it has to be clean for it to be recycled. And so that's our big message. No more wishful recycling. I was a wishful recycler because I always hoped that it would get recycled. There's no recycling fairy. I think if any of you have heard my commercial. So when in doubt, just throw it out, because it's better for it to be in the land. It will go in the landfill anyway. And use your purchasing power. That's a big message. That, find things that aren't made in plastic. How can you do it differently? And practice the 4 R's in this order. Reduce, reuse, recycle, repair. And they're adding more of those R's. But these are other recycling that we do. We do glass recycling. So we keep this separate, and we actually haul this to a facility in Portland called Glass to Glass, and they make new containers out of it. We also accept e-waste, and that's an Oregon program that you can haul up to 7 devices, monitors, keyboards, to our facility, and we'll recycle them for free. You can also recycle your motor oil if you're still changing your oil in your driveway, and you can set this next to your garbage cart with a lid on it, and we will pick it up and recycle it. We're doing limited batteries. I don't know where my paint picture went, but batteries are becoming more and more expensive to recycle. They're costing us a lot, so we have limited locations. There's one here in the library and basically one at our recycling center. We're paying to recycle those. And then we recycle paint. And that's through the Paint Care. So we're a Paint Care drop-off site, and it will get made into new paint. So this is our Waste 101 brochure. I have a whole bunch of those over here if you're interested, and it has a lot of this information on it as specific, really specific information. We also have, this is our old website, but we have a website that I really try to keep updated. You can actually have a search engine that says, I need to throw away, and you type in and it'll tell you what to do with it. If you don't see something on there, email me, and I will add it.
Two more minutes.
Yeah, I just added a fire extinguisher, and we actually can recycle those. I didn't know that. So, But I do this talk a lot to, actually this is similar to the one that I give to a lot of 7th grade science students every year before we go on the field trip. And just the great law of the Iroquois, I'm sure many of you are familiar with this, but it's just to think 7 generations into the future and decide whether decisions that we're making today are going to benefit us in the future. So. Yeah, but I'm open for questions, so if you guys have any, yes.
One more.
Just one question, and then we're gonna, and then you can talk with Amy at 7:30.
Okay. Yes.
On the very first slide you had there, you were showing the increase in this waste that was being, okay, now, according to what you're saying, per capita, it started out 2.8 pounds and went to 4.4 pounds, which is approximately double.
Yes.
And yet the waste that was on the total tonnage went from about 88 million tons to 257 million tons, which is almost a 4 or 5.
So that would include construction debris. So that's a huge, huge portion that is not included in the per person.
What is construction debris?
So like when you see the hospital being torn down, concrete, metal,
recyclable.
Yeah, and we are starting to try to capture those things, but it's expensive to sort out. And in the larger metro areas, it's actually becoming a requirement, and hopefully we'll get there as well.
Now they have machines down in Waldport recycling that school building.
Yeah, and so some of them
through the concrete and the embedded rebar and the whole thing in there, and it separated out all the concrete and it threw the rebar back out.
So we do that for people that are willing to do it. So some construction companies want to be LEED certified, or that where their project is, or they are willing to do it. We definitely do it. It's just whether they're willing to separate it all out and take that manpower to do it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thanks, Amy.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Amy has a table right here in the corner, and as I said, it's 7:30. You know, we're going to be taking like a 10 or 15 minute break, and so line up and ask all the questions.
Turn the light on, Donna.
Yeah. So our next speaker is Mark Salins from Lincoln County Solid Waste.
Just
and,
one in the back.
Just leave that there for now. I think we sort of got it. I think we just sort of pull this.
We'll turn them off here again in a minute.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I just switched.
Oh, you did get enough of a hole to sneak through there. You tried to weave it. I'm sorry you got pushed in the corner a little.
And while Mark's setting up, actually we forgot to bring along a clipboard, but found a little piece of cardboard. If you haven't signed up for our mailing list, please put your name and email address here, and particularly with your email, try to write it very. Oh, you have. Oh, Amy is saving us. See, Amy is prepared. And so, just write your email address very carefully. We'd appreciate that. Yeah. And if everyone just pass that around. Okay.
All right.
So Mark is up.
Okay. Well, I'm notorious for having a place that doesn't carry very far.
That can go with it.
Everyone hear me? So I have to yell even louder. I'm going to switch up gears a little bit. When I was asked to speak, what you may not realize is my position as the program manager for the solid waste district for the county. I'm also the county sustainability coordinator. So something that I thought would be an interesting segue. Tonight I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a little trailer we had called a Watt Wagon back in 2010. Then I'm going to tell you a little bit about how that translated into a wind resource study that we're currently doing. And then I'll get back around to solid waste management and recyclables, talking about the new materials management plan. So my background, I spent 32 years as a marine scientist. So when I came to the county, when people tell me things like, well, that doesn't work here at the Oregon coast, then my first question is, where's the data to prove that? And so Out across the land, you'll get all the opinions in the world about whether wind or solar works there. Okay? Probably could split the room in half and have some of you on both sides. But way back in 2010, we wanted to promote the idea of thinking about it for the Oregon coast. So at that time, there was a sustainability committee in Lincoln City, and they gave the district some money to help build this renewable energy education trailer, which we tagged the Watt Wagon. And probably back in 2010 through about 2014, all kinds of schools, county events, all over the county, you'd see this little trailer show up. Had a 1,000-watt urban turbine. That's what you always call those little small turbines, because, you know, would they run your cabin or something? Yes. Are they going to produce really efficient electricity for you? No. But they serve the purpose. So we had a specially installed one that would actually lift off the trailer and get it up high enough to catch some wind, and more importantly, get out of reach of fingers. And then we had a 200-watt solar panel on that, all tied in back in this first picture. That sort of creamy colored trunk there has a whole series of batteries in it. And then we had an inverter. And so that's to give you some example of the capability of something that small sitting at the fairgrounds one sunny July. At the time, I had an electric vehicle that predated any of the manufactured cars. Some of you probably remember the little tiny blue car. I was able to plug that in, fully charge it with the wind blowing and the solar panel on. And when that was all done and it clicked off, the voltage, if anyone knows anything about how electricity works, the voltage had only dropped 0.2. So basically it meant that it was literally generating enough power to replace what was being sucked into my car. So it's doable lesson number one. So, and that generated an awful lot of interest, I think, in schools. If you go back and you look at, you know, whether I can partly take a little bit credit for this, I have no idea, but I will tell you that if you look at the expansion of solar along the Oregon coast, it starts blossoming quite a bit after 2010 into that period. And there's others in the room too, who I know who will have helped promote that. So that turned into a much bigger project, the Wind Resource Study. Fortunately, we were able to secure a grant from the Energy Trust of Oregon. And then finally, what turned the tide on the county side of the funding getting approved was this thought. Okay, they used to tell us that if we have the big event, we might be out of power for a couple of months, right? Then the reality started coming out that it might be more like a year. So remember the old advertisements, how much is the picture worth? Well, how much is power worth if it's the only electricity that you have? So the idea that if it were feasible to do a commercial scale wind turbine in Lincoln County, if that were feasible, not only could we turn that power, they call it wheeling, we could wheel it into Pacific Power territory because they're the ones who funded the study and they're very close to North Newport, earn money that way, and then in the case of an event, you basically flip a switch and have a local power. Now obviously it's way more complicated than that. You have to have lines to deliver that power, the whole works, but that was the idea. So we finished a 1- and 3-year summary results. I'll get into those in a second. And from those results, I'll talk a little bit about what we're hoping to do. So something people probably don't realize, how many people in the room knew that it blew from the east almost 30% of the time? A few. Big surprise. Obviously, if you're a fisherman, you know this. If you're somebody who spends a lot of time out in the woods, you know this. That's the distribution on the left here. On the right, it translated into, in essence, the miles per hour and the percent of time that it's flowing from those directions. That's one piece of information that's important. Next, there on the left, long-term monthly wind speed. So that's in meters per second. What you really need is a minimum of about 7 miles an hour. So you're looking at meters per second is 2.39. So we've got During December, January, February, March, April, October, those months, you're getting that lower end and on up. But then we have a series of months where it's kind of, and this is average wind speed, where it's kind of like, yeah, it sort of is enough if you have the ideal site. The other thing to keep in mind is remembering that these instruments only go up to 50 meters in tower height. And so it's actually a model that's telling you what's going on higher than that. And a commercial turbine, of course, would be much higher. One factor, upper right-hand graph, and again, people who spend their time on the ocean will recognize this. You'll see that the blue line, that's wind in February, pretty constant. But then, and that's during the daytime. So then you take our summer winds and what happens? They can blow a lot during the daytime and into the evening, but then not at all. And then down at the bottom then is just kind of the frequency distribution. So ideally, if you were getting, say, 3 or 4 meters per second, which is kind of where that peak is, you are at the bottom edge of what could be commercially feasible. So how does that get translated? That gets translated into what's a given turbine able to do. So you'll hear things like 1.5 megawatts. The one on this right graph, first column, 2.346 megawatts. What you're really saying though is to be commercially viable, you need to be producing on average all the time at least 30% of that nameplate value. You'll see at the end of our 3rd year a value down here at the bottom of 27%. At the end of year 1, we actually did hit 30% for that particular turbine model. Here's the message. This work was done for us for free by Phil Barber at Oregon State University. He doesn't have access to all the latest, more efficient power curves for modern technology. So in all likelihood, if we had those, we would be seeing, evidence. And also keep in mind that part of how we picked the spot is because Amy would let us be your neighbor. It turns out that there was a location that was reasonable that had easy access. Obviously, we're not going to spend a bunch of money trying to get to this ideal site. So where we go from here is, let's see, am I missing a slide? Okay, here we go. We're looking to first hire an independent professional. Not that Phil didn't do great work for us, he did, and we very much appreciate it. But if you're really going to go out there and make a serious multi-million-dollar financial decision, next step will be to be hiring a firm to actually analyze that data set and see what they say. One of the things we need to tease out is that there's a little bit of wind shear. And the best way to explain that is if you've got